Good day all, let's hop right into it. So today we are cleaning out a water tank. So first things first, we are going to drop a submersible pump in there, attach a hose, and pump that water out to the street. This is just the last little bit of water that's in the tank. It's already been drained down to the bottom.
When the water level drops down, or when the water level is one, we'll push this up until it shuts off, and then when the water level drops down, it will kick in automatically, just like the device in the toilet. Okay,
Cool.
simple stuff.
The client that we had purchased Watlington water, which is provided by Bermuda Water Works. So whenever he runs out of water, he can easily access this to fill up his tank. Connecting this valve was going to limit the amount of water that actually went into his tank when he would use Watlington, thus conserving water. So this particular water tank was much smaller in terms of the opening, but it was manageable. This is the inside of a tank in Bermuda. This one's a bit smaller compared to other tanks. And this particular tank was cleaned about 2 to 3 years ago. He said just before the pandemic had hit. Tanks should be cleaned every 6 years, max. So we always hear about what goes on top of Bermuda rooftops, but we never talk about what actually goes on the inside. Sometimes cats or rats may climb on your roofs, birds may land on it and poop. You might have insects like mosquitoes or cockroaches on the inside, and leaves and other dirt that makes its way in, and maybe even rusty pipes from old plumbing. So with all that being said, let's do some cleaning. So all of this gunk that's being washed off the walls ends up down to the bottom of the tank along with all the other gross stuff, and the way that gets into your into your house is through the foot valve that rests only about 6 inches off of the bottom of your tanks. So I wanted to give a brief display of what happens when, say, you need to fill up your tank maybe through Watlington or ordering a water truck, and your tank is at low level. If you can see in the third one, it's depicting a sludge or sediment layer at the bottom of your tank. So in the second one's just a little bit of sludge, and the first one's just a clean tank. So what you're seeing in that third slide is sort of what we're doing. We are disturbing that sludge and sediment that's at the bottom of the tank, and it's actually really messed up the water. You can see it's all dirty. I mean, if you're unlucky enough, you might have my toes in your tank at some point. Don't get too excited about that one. But yeah, you can see here we're actually scooping up sludge. So we are removing the sludge from the tank and dumping it out off to the side. I just want to reinforce this point that the Bermudian rooftop is exposed to the environment, which means that all sorts of things can land on top of it. So that also common myth of the rooftops clean our water is not necessarily true. It is a beautiful piece of architecture that has definitely been instrumental in the success of Bermudians through centuries now. But the environment is changing. We have a lot of cars on the road. We have a lot more herbicides and pesticides being used. Construction, all sorts of things that are within the air landing on those rooftops. And whenever we get rain, it gets washed straight down into your tank. So this tank is all done. It's clean and the plumbing is installed. As I said before, if the water is reaching a certain height, this will lock into place and the water will stop pumping. So this means that in the event that a client forgets to turn off his Watlington, he won't be using more water than he needs to. It'll just shut off, and that's good for water conservation. This particular tank holds about 22,000 liters. Most tanks don't actually hold that much because there's an overflow. So once the tank reaches a certain amount, the water, as you guessed it, overflows out. So in closing, I just want to say, be conscious about what's in your tank. Be conscious about drinking your tap water. I highly suggest to most people, to all people really, is to invest in a filter system in your house. You can go for those really expensive UV ones, or maybe a simple one at the bare minimum, just to give yourself a first layer of protection. Outside of that, thank you very much for listening. I hope you learned something new, and have a great day. Okay, wow, I completely forgot to add the sciencey part. So Last but not least, approximately 66% of the water tanks in Bermuda contain E. coli and 90% contain total coliforms, which does not really mean that there is contamination. Also, you should really treat your water as if it is a raw water source. So to be very cautious, protect those babies, those grandparents, and those immunocompromised people. Okay, get it green.